The metal halls of Zareth Station echoed with noise. Shouts, footsteps, and strange alien voices mixed in the air. Bright lights flashed from stalls where traders sold machines, weapons, food, and sometimes people thought it was an ugly place. But Elias Heron, an old human man, walked through it with calm steps. He leaned on a cane made from polished wood, and his long gray coat dragged slightly behind him. His face was full of wrinkles, but his blue eyes were sharp and kind. Most people didn't notice him. A few aliens looked at him with curiosity. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Some feared them, some respected them, but most had never met one in real life. Elias didn't come to Zareth Station to buy anything. He was just passing through on his way to a quiet moon where he planned to live out the rest of his days. But something pulled him toward the center of the market, a crowd. Loud voices and the sound of chains. It was a slave auction. Elias's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He had seen many terrible things in his life: war, hunger, betrayal. But this still made his heart heavy. Rows of cages held living beings, some silent with fear, others crying or shouting in alien tongues. Then he saw her. She was in a small cage, sitting with her arms wrapped around her knees. Her skin was a soft shade of purple, and her eyes were large, glowing faintly gold. She had no chains. She didn't need them. Her body was thin, tired, but her gaze was full of fire. The seller called her a Velari, a rare race with telepathic abilities. Once proud, now scattered across the stars, many were captured and sold like this. The man shouted loudly, promising she could be useful: spy, weapon, servant. He didn't care. All he wanted was credits. Elias stepped closer. Ignoring the crowd, the girl noticed him. She looked straight into his eyes. No fear, no begging. Just a silent question. Are you the same as them? For a moment, they simply stared at each other. And in that moment, something changed. Elias reached into his coat and pulled out a small silver chip. I'll take her, he said. The crowd turned to stare. A few laughed. Others looked confused. A human? Buying a slave? The seller grinned. Well now, I didn't expect a human to join in. She's yours, old man. Don't say I didn't warn you. She's wild. I'll manage, Elias replied calmly. A few minutes later, the deal was done. The cage opened and the Velari girl stepped out, moving carefully. Elias didn't touch her or give her any orders. He simply turned and began walking back to his ship. After a moment, she followed. Back on his ship, the Windturner, Elias made tea. It was an old Earth custom, one he still loved. The girl sat quietly across from him, watching his every move. My name is Elias Heron, he said, handing her a warm cup. What's yours? She didn't answer at first. Then softly she said, Cerise. That's a good name, Elias said. Cerise, I didn't buy you to own you. You're free now. You can leave if you wish. She looked at him sharply. Why? Because slavery is wrong, because no one should live in a cage, and because I can... Cerise didn't know what to say. She had been captured when she was very young. She barely remembered her home. Every being she met wanted to use her for something. No one had ever given her a choice. Where would I go? She asked. Elias shrugged. That's up to you. I can take you to a safer planet, or you can stay here until you decide. Cerise looked around the ship. It was old but clean. The air smelled of tea and wood oil. It was the first place in years that didn't feel like a prison. I'll stay, she said quietly. Elias smiled and nodded. Then you're welcome here. That night, Cerise sat in her small cabin, staring out the window at the stars. She thought of Elias's eyes, kind, calm, and strong. So different from the others, he had power, but didn't use it to hurt. He could have ordered her, but instead, he gave her freedom. And for the first time in her life, she began to believe in something new, a future. The stars moved slowly outside the windows of the Windturner, a small but strong ship now floating in deep space. Inside, everything was quiet except for the soft hum of the engine and the sound of cups gently clinking in the kitchen. Elias Heron stood at the stove, preparing breakfast. He moved slowly, not because he was weak, but because he believed in doing things with care. He cooked eggs, some kind of alien bread, and a sweet drink made from dried fruits he had bought years ago. Cerise sat at the table, watching him. She had never seen anyone cook like this just for her. In the slave camps, food was thrown at them or placed on cold metal trays. There was no kindness, no warmth. But here, Elias placed the plate in front of her like she was a guest. "Eat," he said kindly. "You're too thin." Cerise picked up the fork slowly. Her hands shook just a little. She wasn't used to kindness. She took a bite and her eyes widened. "It's good," she said softly. Elias gave a small smile. "You get better food when no one's trying to control you." Cerise looked at him. "I still don't understand. Why did you free me?" Elias sat down across from her. He placed his cane against the chair and folded his hands. "Because I've seen too much of the galaxy," he said. "Too many people suffer and too many walk away. I couldn't walk away." Cerise was quiet for a moment. "You didn't know?" "Me? I didn't have to," Elias said. "You were in a cage?" That was enough. She didn't speak after that, but something inside her began to shift. For the first time in her life, someone helped her without asking for anything in return. Over the next few days, Cerise slowly learned to trust her surroundings. She explored the ship, always careful not to touch anything without permission. But Elias didn't stop her. In fact, he encouraged her. "Touch, ask questions, explore," he said one morning. "This is your home now, if you want it to be." Cerise had never been on a ship alone before. She learned how the lights worked, how the food was made, and even how the doors opened and closed. She also began to read the books on Elias's shelf. They were written in Earth languages, but Elias helped translate. "This is called a story," he explained, handing her an old book. "Humans write them to share feelings, dreams, and ideas." Cerise opened the book slowly. It was about a brave girl who escaped a dark city and found a land of light. The story touched her deeply. She didn't say it, but she saw herself in the pages. One night, Cerise sat by the window in the control room, staring at the stars. Elias walked in and sat beside her. "You remind me of someone," he said. "Who?" she asked. "My daughter," he said quietly. "She was strong, like you, always curious. She died long ago." "I'm sorry," Cerise said. Elias nodded slowly. "Life gives and life takes, but sometimes it gives again." They sat in silence for a while. It was a warm silence, the kind that needed no words. The next morning, Elias showed Cerise how to fly the ship. Her eyes lit up with excitement as she touched the controls. Elias stood beside her, guiding her hands, smiling at her joy. "You're a fast learner," he said. "I never had the chance to learn anything before," she said. "Well," Elias replied, "you do now." Later, Cerise helped cook dinner. She laughed for the first time when she dropped flour on the floor and Elias stepped in it. He laughed too, and for a moment the ship felt like a home full of life, not just a quiet old vessel. That night, Cerise stood at the door of Elias's cabin. "I want to stay," she said softly. "Not because I have nowhere to go, but because I want to." Elias looked at her kindly. "You're always welcome." She looked down, then looked up again. "You gave me something no one else did. Not food, not safety. You gave me, choice." Elias nodded. "It's a small thing, but it matters." "No," Cerise said firmly. "It's not small. It's everything." And so, a strange friendship began between an old human man and a young alien girl with glowing eyes. He taught her about kindness. She reminded him that even in the later years of life, there is still meaning, still light. Cerise had once been a number, a tool, a prisoner. Now she was a person, a student, a guest, and maybe something more someday. But for now, she was simply free, and that was enough. Days turned into weeks aboard the wind turner. The small ship flew through peaceful space, far from busy trade lanes and dangerous zones. For Cerise, it felt like the first quiet time in her life. She woke up each day without fear. No guards, no orders. No chains. Elias Heron, the old human, who had freed her, treated her not like a pet or a prisoner, but like a person. That was new to her. At first, she didn't know how to act. But slowly she began to relax. Elias had a routine. He woke early, made tea, and checked the ship's systems. He always invited Cerise to sit with him. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they just watched the stars together. He never forced her to do anything. Still, she found herself joining him more and more. One morning, Elias showed her a screen filled with strange symbols. "What's this?" Cerise asked. "These are star charts," Elias explained. "Maps of the galaxy. I used them when I was younger. Traveled to places no one had ever seen before." Cerise leaned closer. "You were an explorer?" "Yes," Elias said with a small smile. "Long ago, before the war, before I lost too much." Cerise looked at him. "Is that why you live alone?" Elias nodded. "It's easier. No one to lose, no one to hurt." Cerise was quiet. She understood. She had lost too much too. Her family, her people, her freedom. "You didn't have to save me," she said suddenly. "I know," Elias replied. "But I wanted to." "Why?" she asked again, softly. Elias looked at her, then pointed at the stars on the screen. "Because in all my travels and all the planets and stars I saw, kindness was the rarest thing, and I decided I'd rather be kind than great." Cerise started helping with small tasks around the ship, cleaning, cooking, organizing. Elias never asked, but she did it anyway. She wanted to repay him somehow. One day, while cleaning the storage room, she found an old metal box. Inside were pictures, real ones, printed on paper. A younger Elias smiled in them, standing beside a woman and a little girl. They looked happy. Brought the box to Elias. He looked at the photos for a long time. "My wife and daughter," he said quietly. "They died in the Earth collapse." Cerise sat beside him. "I'm sorry, you don't have to be," he said. "The past hurts, but it also teaches." "What did it teach you?" she asked. Elias gave a tired smile. "To hold on to the good people while you can." That night, Cerise sat alone in her room looking out at the stars. She touched her own reflection in the window. For so long she had been treated like nothing. But now she was learning who she really was. She was not weak. She was not worthless. She was Cerise, a Valari with a voice, a mind, and a heart, and Elias had helped her see it. A week later, the ship stopped at a small spaceport on a quiet moon. Elias needed supplies. Cerise asked to go with him. "Are you sure?" Elias asked. "It might not be safe." "I'm not afraid," she said. They walked through the market together. Some aliens stared at Cerise, noticing the mark on her neck, a scar from her time in slavery. Elias stood tall beside her, and she felt stronger with him there. At one stall, a merchant tried to speak to Cerise like she was property. "How much for the girl?" he asked Elias. Cerise froze. Elias's face grew firm. "She is not for sale. She is free. Speak to her with respect or not at all." The merchant stepped back, surprised. Cerise looked at Elias, her heart full of something she didn't have words for that night. Back on the ship, she sat across from Elias at dinner. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" he asked. "For standing up for me," she said. "For seeing me. You deserve to be seen," Elias said. "Not just as a Valari, as a person." The next morning, Cerise brought Elias a small gift. It was a stone from the moon market, shaped like a star. "What's this?" Elias asked. "A reminder," she said. "That kindness is rare, but it shines the brightest." He took it gently. "Thank you." Cerise smiled. For the first time, trust began to grow strong between them. It wasn't fast and it wasn't loud, but it was real. In a quiet ship flying through the galaxy, a young alien girl and an old human man built something special, not power, not wealth. Just trust. And from that trust, something even stronger would begin to grow. The stars outside the wind turner looked calm. But space was never truly safe. Elias sat in the control room, watching blinking lights on the dashboard. They were passing through a zone near Galactic Syndicate territory, a powerful group that controlled many systems. He hoped their old ship would not attract attention. Cerise entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Still no problems?" she asked. Elias took the cup and gave her a gentle smile. "So far, so good. But I don't like being this close to Syndicate space. They don't forgive." Cerise nodded. She knew the name well. The Syndicate was the Same group that allowed slave markets to operate. They pretended to keep peace, but behind the scenes, they let cruel things happen. I'll keep the ship cloaked, Elias said. We'll be out of this zone by morning. Cerise sat beside him and looked out the window. Do you think they're still looking for me? Elias paused. I hope not, but it's possible. You were listed as high value. Because of my powers, Cerise said softly. Not because I was a person. To me, you're not a weapon. You're Cerise, she smiled at that. Just a little hours later, alarms began to beep. Elias leaned forward. A ship had appeared on their scanners, fast, official, and marked with the Syndicate's logo. They found us, he said quietly. The ship moved to intercept. A message flashed on the screen. Unidentified vessel, lower shields, prepare for inspection. Elias sighed. We can't outrun them. Not with this old ship. Cerise stood up. Then let me help. No, Elias said quickly. If they see you, they won't, she said, her voice calm. I can shield our minds. I was trained to hide thoughts, feelings, even memories. Elias looked at her. He didn't like the idea of her using the same skills the slavers wanted to force out of her. But she was not the same girl anymore. She was strong and free. All right, he said. Let's do it together. Minutes later, the Syndicate patrol docked with the wind turner. 2 officers boarded, one tall and serious, the other younger. And curious, Elias greeted them with a steady hand. Cerise stood silently beside him, her golden eyes calm. As the officers asked questions, Cerise focused. She reached out with her mind, gently touching theirs, not to hurt, just to guide. She created a simple idea in their minds. There is nothing strange here, just an old man and his ship. The younger officer frowned, looking at Cerise. Who is she? My assistant, Elias said smoothly. She helps with navigation. Came from a free world called Kirella. You can check the registry. The officer glanced at his scanner. It matches. Cerise stayed quiet, holding the mental shield steady. The officers walked around the ship, scanned a few rooms, then finally returned. You're clear, the lead officer said. Travel safe, old man. Always, Elias replied. The officers left. The ship disconnected and vanished into the stars. As soon as they were gone, Cerise fell into the chair, breathing hard. Elias knelt beside her. Are you all right? I haven't done that in years, she said, her voice shaking. But I did it for us. You were amazing, Elias sighed. She looked at him with tired eyes. I didn't want them to take you. Not after everything you did for me. You shouldn't have to protect me, he said. Maybe not, she whispered. But I wanted to. That night Elias made soup. Cerise sat with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The room was quiet but peaceful. You used your gift. Elias said gently. Not because someone forced you, but because you chose to, Cerise nodded. That makes it different. Very different, he agreed. She looked at him. You taught me that. I was afraid of my powers. I thought they only brought pain, but now I see. They can protect too. Elias smiled, like a blade used for peace. Exactly, she said. Before they went to bed, Cerise stopped Elias in the hallway. Why do you still care for me? She asked softly. You've already given me freedom, a place to live. You could have let me go. Elias looked into her glowing eyes. Because you matter, Cerise. Not for what you can do, or what you've been through. Just because you're you. Her heart felt heavy and light at the same time. I've never known anyone like you, she said. Maybe, Elias said, but now you do. Later that night, Cerise stood at her window, thinking about everything that had happened. She had used her mind to protect someone for the first time by choice. She had looked danger in the face and stayed strong, and beside her, in the same ship, was a man who didn't see her as a tool, but as a friend. The galaxy was still full of danger, yes, but now, for the first time, Cerise believed it could also be full of hope. The ship floated silently in deep space, stars shining like cold diamonds all around. Inside, the wind turner felt peaceful, like a quiet home hidden from the world. For Cerise, each day brought a new feeling, something strange, something warm. She was no longer a prisoner. She was no longer afraid, but now another feeling had started. growing inside her when she didn't understand at first. It came when Elias laughed, or when he offered her tea, or when he smiled while reading his old books. It was not fear. It was not pain. It was something soft. Something good. She started dreaming about staying with him. Not just for safety, but forever. Elias had noticed the change in her. She walked with confidence now. Her voice was no longer quiet. She asked questions, fixed small parts of the ship, and even argued with him sometimes. She had become more than a passenger. She had become a part of his life. One morning, Cerise entered the control room holding a small silver object in her hands. It was shaped like a ring, but larger. A Villari symbol was carved into it. "What's that?" Elias asked. "A joining token," she said. "Villari use it to ask someone to bond, like humans ask for marriage." Elias looked at her, surprised. "Where did you get that?" "I made it," Cerise said. "From the spare parts you gave me," he smiled gently. "You've learned a lot." She nodded. "But there's something more I want to learn." "What's that?" She walked closer, then stopped a few steps away. "I want to know if a heart, once broken, can open again." Elias tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Cerise took a deep breath. "You lost your family." "I lost mine. But when I'm with you, I don't feel lost anymore." He stayed quiet. "I know I am young," she said, "and I am not human. But my people believe that love grows in silence and kindness, and I feel it when I'm with you." Elias looked at her, eyes full of thought. "Are you saying you wish to marry me?" She looked down, then back up. "Yes." Elias stood up and walked to the window. He stared at the stars for a long time. Cerise didn't interrupt. She knew he needed time. Finally, he spoke. "I never thought anyone would ask me that again." He said, "Not after all I lost." Cerise waited. "You're brave," Elias continued, "and kind and full of life. You brought warmth back into this cold ship, into my old heart." He turned to face her. "But are you sure?" he asked. "Your life is just beginning. I'm already near my sunset." Cerise smiled gently. "Even a sunset glows more beautifully when someone watches it with love." Elias laughed softly. "You've become quite the poet." "I've been reading your books," she said with a wink. He stepped closer and took the joining token from her hand. He turned it in his fingers, then nodded. "Double quotes, if this is what you truly want," he said. "Then yes, I accept." Cerise smiled, her eyes glowing like golden fire. They didn't hold a grand ceremony. There were no guests, no music, no priest. Just a quiet promise between two souls who had been broken and found healing together. Elias placed the token on her wrist, where Villari wore such symbols. In return, she tied a cloth band around his hand, blue, the color of her people's vows. Afterward, they had a simple meal. Elias made sweet bread, and Cerise added glowing berries from a nearby planet. They sat side by side and laughed like they had always belonged together. Later that night, Elias showed Cerise an old wooden box. Inside was a single picture of his daughter. "She would have liked you," he said. "I would have liked her too," Cerise replied. Elias looked at her, his voice soft. "You've given me something I thought I'd lost." "And you gave me life," Cerise said. "Not just breath, but a real life." With choices, from that day on, their bond grew stronger. They weren't just travelers anymore. They were partners, companions, a family made not by blood, but by choice. They visited quiet planets, helped small villages, and shared stories with strangers. Cerise used her powers to heal minds. Elias shared his knowledge to repair broken systems wherever they went. People smiled when they saw them, an old human and a glowing-eyed Villari, standing together in peace, but in the shadow of space. Not everything was quiet. Far away, a message was sent. A tracker had picked up the Windturner signal again, and this time, it wasn't just the Syndicate watching. Someone else was coming, someone who wanted Cerise back, and they wouldn't ask nicely. The stars outside the Windturner shined peacefully. But inside the ship, a quiet warning buzzed. Elias sat in the control chair, his old hands moving smoothly across the dashboard. "Something's not right," he said softly. Cerise walked in, wearing her soft blue robe. "What is it?" He pointed to the screen. We're being followed. A small ship, no signal, no reply to hails. Cerise frowned. Could it be pirates? No. Pirates make noise. This one is silent. Elias leaned closer. Like it doesn't want us to know it's there. Her golden eyes narrowed. They found me again? Elias nodded. It could be the syndicate. Or worse, someone who works in shadows. They both knew Cerise was valuable to many powerful groups. Some wanted her powers. Some wanted revenge. Some just hated the idea of a free Valari. Elias set the ship to stealth mode. Lights dimmed, engines softened. He turned to Cerise. We'll stop at the moon of Thalos Prime. There's an old shelter there. If things go wrong, we hide. Cerise touched his hand. We face it together. Thalos Prime was a quiet gas giant. Its third moon was dusty and gray, covered in caves and thick rock walls. No one lived there now. Years ago, it had been a science base, but now it was forgotten. Elias landed the ship behind a cliff, out of sight. The two of them walked toward the old shelter. The building was still there, made of stone and metal, half buried under dust. Inside, it was cold and dark, but safe. We'll stay here, Elias said. Just until we know who's following. Cerise looked around. Do you think they'll land? If they're smart, yes. If they're hunters, they'll want to come quietly. Cerise nodded. Then I'll make the first move. That night, the stars over the moon were clear. A soft wind blew across the surface, carrying the sound of nothing. Cerise sat outside the shelter, eyes closed, reaching out with her mind. Her people called it the listening. It was how Valari could feel danger before it arrived. Suddenly, she sensed it. A presence, cold, focused, not cruel, but not kind. Like a machine with a goal, she opened her eyes. They're close. Elias stepped beside her. One person or many? Only one, she whispered. But strong. He looked out into the dark. Then we meet them on our terms. The visitor came at dawn. He was tall, dressed in dark armor that didn't reflect light. His face was hidden behind a smooth helmet. He walked like he didn't fear anything. Elias and Cerise stood in front of the shelter. The man stopped a few meters away. You are Cerise of Velar? I am, she answered calmly. I've been sent to bring you back. Elias stepped forward. She is free. The man turned his helmet slightly. She was bought. Freed without papers? That freedom is illegal. In some systems, Elias frowned. In your systems, maybe? Not in ours. I don't serve the syndicate, the man said. I serve a private client. One who still believes she belongs to them, Cerise spoke, her voice firm. I belong to no one. The man tilted his head. Then prove it, Cerise stepped forward. Her eyes glowed brighter, not with anger, but with power she now controlled. I am Cerise of Velar, healer of minds, speaker of truth. I walked through fire and chose peace. The man didn't move. I won't fight you, she said. But I won't go with you either. The wind grew. Quiet. Then the man removed his helmet. To their surprise, he was not a human. He was a Valari older, with gray lines in his blue skin and sharp silver eyes. You speak like a queen, he said softly. But you were born a servant. Cerise looked into his eyes. Then I rose. He looked at Elias. And he helped you. Yes, she said. He gave me my name back. The Valari man looked down, then nodded. I was once like you, he said, until I gave up hope, until I believed our kind would always be ruled. Then believe again, Cerise said gently. For a long time, no one spoke. Then the man turned and walked back toward his ship. Elias called after him, What will you tell your client? The man stopped. That I found no one? That she was already gone. And then he left. Inside the shelter, Cerise sat beside Elias. Her hands were shaking. You did it, Elias said. I thought I'd have to fight, she whispered. You did, he said. But with your heart, she smiled. Maybe that's a stronger weapon. Elias looked at her, full of pride. You were never anyone's slave. Not really, you just needed to see it. I see it now, she said, because you showed me. Back aboard the Windturner, the ship took off once more. Cerise stood at the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in the galaxy, people still hunted, still hated. still believed they could own others, but here, on this ship, two people had proven them wrong, and Cerise knew her journey was not over. It was only just beginning. The Windturner floated gently through space, far from Syndicate maps, far from old fears. Inside the ship, things had changed, small things, quiet things, but full of meaning. Elias had fixed the kitchen light. Cerise had added soft curtains to the sleeping quarters. Together, they had planted herbs in small soil beds near the engine room. It felt more like home now, but it wasn't just the ship that had changed. Cerise herself had grown. One morning, as stars blinked outside the windows, Cerise stood in front of the mirror in the captain's quarters. She wore a long tunic, soft blue like her people's sky. Around her wrist was the joining token, still shining. But now she wore something else, a pendant Elias had given her, shaped like a small compass. "Your future is yours now," he had told her when he gave it to her. She touched the pendant, then smiled. Today was special. Elias sat in the dining area, sipping tea. Cerise joined him and placed a small metal device on the table. He looked up. "What's that?" "A registry beacon," she said. "We can now mark the Windturner under both our names." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Captain and co-captain? Equal owners," she said. "I already filled the form." He chuckled. "Did you list me as old and grumpy?" She smiled. "I wrote, wise, experienced, and sometimes slow at fixing coffee machines." They both laughed. Then Cerise grew serious. "There's one more thing I added." Elias waited. "I gave myself a last name," she said quietly. Elias blinked. "What is it?" She met his eyes. "Turner, like the ship." "Like you." Elias leaned back in his chair, touched. "Cerise Turner?" "I chose it," she said, "not because I was owned, but because I was loved. This name means freedom to me." He nodded slowly. "Then it's the right name." Later that week they landed on a peaceful green planet called Myra's Edge, where the air was fresh and rivers sang like music. The people there welcomed travelers with open hands and warm food. Elias and Cerise stayed in a small guest house for a few days. They helped repair an old water system in the village. Cerise also healed a young girl who had trouble sleeping due to bad dreams. "You have a gift," the girl's mother told Cerise. "Not just with the mind, but with the heart." Cerise smiled and thanked her. One night, as stars rose over the hills, Cerise and Elias sat outside their guest house. "Do you ever miss the past?" she asked softly. Elias looked at the sky. "Sometimes I miss my daughter, my wife, the life I had." He paused. "But if I had not lost them, I wouldn't have met you." Cerise took his hand. "And I wouldn't have known what kindness truly is." They sat in silence for a while. Then Elias said, "What do you want now, Cerise Turner? Where do you want to go?" She looked at the stars. "I want to visit Vila, my homeworld. Not to live there, but to help others like me. Slaves, orphans, lost ones. I want to show them they have a choice." Elias smiled. "Then we go to Vila." She turned to him. "And after that?" He laughed. "Then we keep going. There are millions of stars left." Weeks later, the Windturner arrived near Vila's orbit. Cerise stood at the window, watching her planet spin below. "I was taken from there in chains," she said. "Now I return in peace." She opened a small radio channel to speak to the surface. "My name is Cerise Turner. I come in friendship, I bring knowledge and healing, I seek only to share hope." The reply came quickly. "Welcome home, Cerise Turner. We've been waiting for you." They stayed on Vila for a few months. Cerise taught young Velari how to control their minds gently, without fear. She helped build safe places for refugees and gave speeches about freedom and self-worth. Elias helped design stronger defense systems, so others wouldn't be captured the way Cerise had been. People listened. Hearts changed, and slowly, stories spread about a human man and a Velari woman traveling the stars, bringing light where there had been darkness. One evening, as the sun set behind Vila's crystal mountains, Elias and Cerise stood on a high platform. "Do you regret anything?" she asked. Elias smiled. "Only that I didn't meet you sooner." Cerise laughed softly. "I used to believe I was broken, that no one would ever want me for who I was. And now?" he asked. "Now I know," she said, taking his hand. "I was never broken. I was only waiting for the right story to begin. Above them, the stars shine brighter than ever, and somewhere among them, the windturner waited for its captains, ready for the next journey. Together. Forever.